It's springtime and it's time to plant your spring garden, but there's 4 things to consider before you plant those seeds. First of all, it's obvious. What vegetables are you going to grow? But you know what? That can be a struggle for many people. Which vegetables are right for your area and for you and your family? Secondly, if you haven't tested your soil, go ahead and do that now. I'll leave a link in the description below for Florida residents. Third, make a plan. You'll be glad you did. That way you'll know exactly where you're going to plant what vegetable. And that's important as the next thing. Fourth, prepare your beds because different vegetables require different nutrients. And it's not really one size fits all. And I also have a 5th thing that I face, maybe you don't, but I'll share that with you at the end of the video too. Let's get started.
All I have needs, I have not provided.
So what seeds should you grow? I'm transitioning from my fall garden into my spring garden, but I still have to consider what are the best crops that I want to grow for this coming season. I want to grow vegetables that is going to fill my table for months to come. So I have to be really strategic as to which vegetables I want to grow. You know, I belong to a couple of gardening groups, and quite often I see people trying all different kinds of vegetables. But for me, I'll try 1 or 2 just to experiment and see if it's really something that I like. I'm not going to plan my whole garden around that. I am going to grow vegetables that grow well here in Central Florida and obviously things that I really like. Have you ever grown something that you didn't like? I have. Napa cabbage for one thing. For some reason I just don't like it, but it grows great here through the winter. So for spring, I'm going to choose Bush Blue Lake green beans, Ford Hook Bush butter beans, Henderson butter beans, black eyed peas, zipper peas, 2 different kinds of corn, okra, and as you see here, my tomatoes actually made it through the winter because I have this miniature greenhouse that really made a difference. I can't wait to plant these. I'm going to wait 2 or 3 more weeks and they'll go in this bed right here. But I've got some new ones starting and it's going to be probably a month before they're ready to plant. And I know that here in this garden where they're going to get really hot really quick, I'm going to plant them in a different environment and see if I can coax them along further into the year. Now I did this out of necessity because I didn't know if these plants were going to make it. And honestly, that's not enough plants for me, but that may be all I get this year, unless these guys surprise me and go ahead and produce later on this summer. So what do you like to grow? Make a list. So what do you really like to eat? And what would you be willing to preserve if you had an abundance? Make a list and stick with it. But be sure that it's something that will grow during that time of year and in your climate. One of the biggest mistakes that people make here in Florida is they think that they're going to be able to grow things like lettuce in the summer or cabbage or carrots. It just doesn't work that way. So be sure you go to a reliable source and see what you should be planting in the springtime where you live. I highly recommend that you get your soil tested before you even begin. That way you know what amendments that you need to improve your soil. And different crops need different things. But just as a general rule, get some soil samples from all over your garden, dry them out really good, and send that to a reliable source. Now here in Florida, I send it to the University of Florida. So what you want to do is actually get the soil. Right here, I've raked up as a covering a lot of unfinished compost that I put around my plants. And so I have to dig down pretty deep to just get the soil. And then I'll pick out the largest parts of the twigs and things that haven't decomposed yet. So You want to have it dry. Be sure you send them enough soil. I made that mistake one time. I didn't send them enough soil. So read your instructions carefully and send them what their requirement is. Now, here in Florida, I think it's something like $10 at the University of Florida, and it's going to cost probably $7 or $8 in postage to get it there, but it's well worth it. And then they'll email you a really good list of things that they recommend that you do for your soil for vegetable gardening. Number 3, make a plan. Now what I do is I make a master plan and then I copy it so that I have just the basic there ready to fill in over and over. That way I don't have to scribble in all my paths over and over again. So I will write down what's going to go in that particular bed, and then I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. On the back I make all kinds of notes, and then I refer to that and I put it in my garden journal. So on this side, I've got mostly beans and tomatoes, and I'm going to start some potatoes, sweet potato slips on the far end. Now those won't be ready for several months, but I got to start them now. On the side where the camera is where I'm going to put in all my corn and let's see, zipper peas, black-eyed peas, and bush blue lake green beans. Now, once your plan is ready, then you're going to know how to amend the soil for each of those crops, and that's number 4. So as you're preparing your beds, be sure you do your research and find out what that particular vegetable needs as far as nutrients. I'm going to be putting cranberry beans here. It's a dry bean. That particular bean does not require near as much of a fertile soil as the corn that's going to go across my path here. So I'm going to concentrate more amendments on that side of the garden than I am on this side of the garden. So your beans, peas, don't require as much fertilizer or amendments as, say, tomatoes. And tomatoes don't require as much as corn. So you've got to keep that in mind. Also, the green beans like their soil to be a little bit acidic, and the corn seems to be a little bit more forgiving about that. So I've got my own amendments that I've mixed up. According to my soil test, my soil is alkaline and it stays alkaline. So I have to constantly be adding sulfur to it. Now you can get sulfur pellets or a powder sulfur. The powder is pretty much immediately available to the plants, and your soil will have an improvement pretty quick. The pellets are for over time. Here in Florida, my soil is sandy. Even though it's been worked and it's rich in nutrients, it's still basically a sandy soil. And so amendments do just kind of wash down and keep washing away. And so I will amend every time that I plant a new crop according to what that crop needs. A lot of what you see here is dirt from our burn pile. And so it includes wood ash. Guess what? Wood ash is alkaline. Why would I add more wood ash to soil that's alkaline? Well, it's potassium. And my soil also needs potassium in a big way. That's what my soil test is telling me. And my plants have told me that too, because you have to know what to look for. And I have a video about that, by the way, how to determine what kind of nutrients to add to your soil. So be sure you look up here in the cards and click on that. It's not going to take you away from this video. It's just going to open up another tab. Did you know that? So go ahead and click on that video so you can see what the different nutrients, how they affect your garden and what they're good for. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are the 3 major ones to look at, although there's lots more. So what I've done with this wood ash is I've added both the powder sulfur and also the pelleted sulfur. And then as the plants begin to grow, I can adjust whether I want to add more powdered sulfur right onto the plant or not. And that's only for beans and peas. And that's a whole nother video for later. I've added other things like magnesium, and that is Epsom salts that you can buy in the grocery store or in where your pharmacy is. Just be sure you don't get the kind that's got scent added to it. Just get regular. Or you can buy it also as an amendment from wherever you buy your fertilizers. But I think it's cheaper to buy it at your drugstore. So I do magnesium, a little bit of iron. I don't do that unless I see that there's a need on the plant itself later on as it's growing. I add some bone meal, not a lot. Another thing I add is potassium because my soil is very depleted in potassium. Even though it's in my wood ash, it's still not enough. And I learned that from previous years of putting wood ash in my garden. It still wasn't enough. It helps, but it's not enough. So that's basically what I do for every bed. And then for the corn, I will go ahead and add manure. Now you have to be careful about manure. And I have a whole video about that. And I gotta warn you, you really need to see that video. It's very important. Right here, go earmark that, click it, and it'll put another tab up so you can watch that after you get done with this video. And now for the practicum. I'm going to take out the broccoli plants that are here, and I'm going to leave my onions, my green onions, and I'm going to leave my arugula because I'm letting it bolt and make seeds because I want to save the seeds for next year. So from here down, I'm going to be growing Ford Hook butter beans. And that takes a whole different set of nutrients than my broccoli did. And by the way, these broccoli plants are pitiful. But actually, they did great because where I had them originally planted, those plants were like 12 inches tall and did nothing. So at least I got a little bit of broccoli out of these. And I know that this soil is better than the soil over there that I'm letting it rest for a year while I build the nutrients back up over there. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the old plants. And these are going to go in my compost. Compost needs green things. I know some of you like to eat the leaves, but I don't care for them. So they're going to feed my compost. The next thing I'm going to do is rake back all the leaves and things, twigs that haven't decomposed, because I really don't want wood down in the soil. It's okay for it to be on top. If wood is decaying inside or down underneath the surface, it's going to take nitrogen to break down, and whatever you're planting there is not going to get the nitrogen that you want it to have because the wood is using it to break down. Now eventually it returns that nitrogen back to your soil, but I'm just going to use this as a mulch after the plants are up and growing. There's been several years where I removed the soil down to 8 to 10 inches deep. I remove it and then I will put oak leaves down in there and then a layer of manure. I don't have manure available to me anymore until later on in the year, so I don't have that option. I could put leaves down under here, but this soil has been worked so much that I'm very confident that I can get rid of these roots here and just loosen up the soil and reform my bed. And once I do that, then I'm going to add amendments on the top and stir that in. One reason it's good to hand dig your garden First of all, you're not going to cut these guys in half. And second of all, it helps you to see the condition of your garden. And if I see a lot of earthworms, that means that particular bed is going to be a really good bed to grow my vegetables in. Now that I've loosened up the soil, I'm going to pick out weeds that I don't want in there, and I'll form my beds just by pulling up that loosened soil. I've got a root here that I've got to figure out where is it coming from and get it cut off, because I don't want it in my garden. Now this is eventually going to be my path, and it will even itself out. So the rest of this path is going to go into that bed when I'm forming it. So if you're old like I am, you just got to learn how much you can do in a day and then call it quits. Don't wear yourself out. Just do a little bit at a time. So I take the opportunity to continue to fight against pink wood sorrel. If you haven't seen that video, you need to look at it, because pink wood sorrel in your garden is not a good idea. And now that the bed is formed, I'm not going to walk on it, and it should last me until this time next year. It'll keep its shape pretty good. But now's the time that I'm going to add my homemade concoction, or home mixed concoction of soil amendments. And I'm just going to sprinkle it lightly over the entire thing. Doesn't need a lot because I'm growing beans here. Beans do not require as much as my corn. And since I already know that this soil here is really healthy, then I'm just going to put a very little bit here. Another half. And then I'm just going to stir that in to the top layer of this soil. I'm still picking out wood sorrel. Be sure to check that video out. Wood sorrel is not your friend in the garden. So remember, there's 4 things to consider before you start planting your garden. What vegetables will you really, really eat? And if you have an abundance, will you preserve it? Get your soil tested, plan your garden, and then prepare your garden. All the beds, they need to be prepared ahead of time for the vegetable that's going to go in there. And for me, there's a 5th thing. I promised you one more thing that's a real bother for me. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. As I was preparing this first bed yesterday, I said, where are all these roots coming from? Those are feeder roots, and they're coming from an oak tree. And I know to maintain the edges of my garden, because unfortunately I planted my garden years ago, planted them too close to the oak trees. So now I have to maintain the edge. But I thought I was on top of it, but I missed something. So here's the bed that I was just showing you. Here's a close-up of those roots. They seem harmless, but no, they suck the life out of your garden. So here's another bed, another bed. So there were 3 beds into my whole garden. And look, I found the culprit. You see way down in here? That is a root. It is so big that I'm going to have to use this old axe because the shovel is not going to get that taken care of. Let me see if I can show you just how big that root is. Okay. I would say an inch to an inch and a half wide or in diameter. And that means it can send roots all the way down past the banana trees and into the compost piles, because I've been seeing feeder roots there too, and I knew they were oak tree feeder roots. So I'm going to spin you around. Those are the oak trees that are invading my garden. Okay, I got it cut, but I wanted to show you just how deep down that root was. So when I edge my garden all the way down, I have to take this shovel and go even deeper than the length of that shovel head. Look at that. Yeah, they will suck your garden dry. So there you have it. That was a workout. All the way down. And also across the back. All the way down. Because of that big guy right there. Thanks for your valuable time. I hope it's been helpful. So what vegetables are you going to grow this spring? I hope you leave some comments down in the comments below.
Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto